A vanishing act, the case of Gideon Kibet. The knock came in the dead of night. Masked men, their faces obscured by balaclavas, forced their way into the small apartment. Gideon Kibet, a university student known for his sharp political cartoons, was dragged from his bed. His roommates watched in terror, powerless to intervene. This was not a robbery. Gideon's phone, laptop and wallet lay untouched. The men were not after possessions, they were after Gideon's voice. Gideon's abduction was not an isolated incident. Across Kenya, a chilling pattern was emerging. Government critics, especially those active on social media, were disappearing. Fear snaked its way through the online community. Was a comment, a retweet, enough to warrant a visit from the men in masks? The authorities, for their part, remained tight-lipped, fueling speculation and deepening the sense of dread. The disappearances marked a dark turn in Kenya's political landscape. A country once lauded for its vibrant democracy was now grappling with an insidious new reality. The space for dissent, once considered sacrosanct, was shrinking, its boundaries redrawn with fear as the ink. The Finance Bill, fueling dissent and disappearances. The disappearances began shortly after the introduction of the controversial Finance Bill 2023. The bill, widely seen as exacerbating the already dire economic situation, sparked nationwide protests. Young people, burdened by unemployment and soaring living costs, took to the streets in anger. They demanded economic justice, their chants echoing a deep-seated frustration with the ruling elite. Social media became a battleground. Hashtags like #RejectTheBill trended daily, offering a platform for citizens to vent their frustrations and mobilize support. It was here in the digital sphere that Gideon Kibet found his voice. His cartoons, biting satires of the president and his policies, struck a chord with the disillusioned youth. The government, however, was not amused. They saw the online dissent as a threat, a direct challenge to their authority. The disappearances, many believed, were a calculated attempt to silence dissent and crush the burgeoning protest movement. Ruto's response, from denial to evasive acknowledgement. President Ruto's initial response to the disappearances was chilling in its dismissiveness. He accused the opposition of fabricating stories to sow discord and undermine his government. The abductions, he claimed, were nothing more than a figment of their overactive imaginations. As evidence mounted and international pressure grew, President Ruto was forced to change his tune. He acknowledged for the first time that there had been a few isolated incidents of illegal detentions by rogue security officers. These, he insisted, were not state-sanctioned and would be thoroughly investigated. His words, however, rang hollow. The families of the disappeared were left with more questions than answers. Who were these rogue officers? Why were they operating with impunity? And most importantly, where were their loved ones? Voices silenced, the trauma of the disappeared. Weeks later, Gideon Kibet reappeared, as suddenly as he had vanished. He was dropped off near his apartment, disoriented and traumatized. He bore the physical and psychological scars of his ordeal. He refused to speak to the media, his silence a testament to the terror he had endured. Gideon's story, though harrowing, is not unique. Other released detainees told similar tales of being bundled into unmarked vehicles, blindfolded and taken to secret locations. They spoke of being held incommunicado, subjected to beatings, and interrogated about their online activities. The trauma of their experience lingered long after their release. Many were too afraid to return to their homes, fearing further reprisals. They lived in a state of perpetual anxiety, their voices effectively silenced by the fear that had been instilled in them. A crackdown on dissent, international outcry and the fight for freedom. The disappearances sent shockwaves through Kenyan society and beyond. Human rights organizations condemned the government's actions, calling for an immediate end to the crackdown on dissent. The United Nations expressed its deep concern and urged the Kenyan government to uphold its human rights obligations. The international community, once a staunch ally of the Kenyan government, grew increasingly critical. Foreign aid, a lifeline for the country's struggling economy, was now under scrutiny. The message was clear: respect for human rights was not negotiable. Despite the mounting pressure, the Kenyan government remained defiant. They dismissed the international outcry as interference in their internal affairs. The fight for justice for the disappeared and for the soul of Kenya's democracy was far from over. The world was watching.